Some stories feel like they were written for movies until you realize they actually happened. Moments of impossible courage, nights when people vanish without a trace, crime so cruel the human mind wants to look away, and tragedies that unfold in total silence while the world kept turning as if nothing was wrong. Tonight, we're not just talking about headlines, we're walking into the scenes themselves, into forests, cabins, city streets, airplane cabins, and quiet houses where everything looked normal, right up until it didn't. These are 10 true stories that don't feel real, but they actually are. Milton, New South Wales, May 2004. The kind of cool, quiet day where the bush seems harmless, sunlight's filtering through tall gums, cicadas buzzing like background static. 7-year-old Tyler Moon climbs onto the back of his dad's quad bike. Just a short ride home through the forest, a routine they've done before. They follow a narrow dirt trail, dust flickering up behind the tires, and Tyler clings to his dad's back, trusting him completely. There's no sense of danger, no warning, just the hum of the engine and the rustle of the leaves. Then it happened in an instant. The front wheels catch on a hitting branch, almost invisible against the ground. The bike jolts, metal twists, the quad rears up and violently flips. David is slammed to the ground as the full weight of the machine crushes down on top of him. Tyler is thrown, his small body hitting hard. David is pinned under the heavy frame, critically injured and unable to move. Tyler's injuries are catastrophic: multiple fractured ribs, a badly damaged lung, and a serious internal bleeding. Most adults would struggle actually to stay conscious, and Tyler is 7. For a moment, the forest goes quiet. No engine, no voices, just the buzz of insects and the ringing shock that follows the impact. Tyler tries to breathe and feels white hot pain rip through his chest. Every inhale is like a knife. His body is telling him to lie down and not get up. But somewhere in that pain, another thought cuts through. Tyler somehow pushes himself to his feet. His vision swims. The world blurs at the edge. 2 kilometers of blush land stand between him and home. The trail isn't smooth, it's uneven, full of dips, rocks, and roots. With every step, broken ribs grind inside his chest. His damaged lung struggles to pull in air. Internal bleeding is already building. He starts walking away, half stumbling, half dragging himself forward. Branches snag his clothes, twigs slice his skin. The ground tilts and shifts as dizziness sets in. His legs threaten to buckle. He could pass out at any second, but he doesn't turn back. He doesn't stop. Each breath is agony. Every heartbeat feels like it might be his last. The forest around him is indifferent. No one is coming down that path. No help, no ambulance. If Tyler doesn't make it home, his father dies alone under that quad bike. He keeps going. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The house finally comes into view, almost unreal in the distance, like a mirage. Tyler's body is at its limits. He reaches the door, somehow crosses the last few steps, and collapses at his mother's feet. "Daddy needs an ambulance," he managed to whisper. Those 4 words, spoken through unimaginable pain, saved David's life. Emergency services get to the crash site. Both father and son are rushed to the hospital. Against the odds, they survive. Doctors are stunned that a child with that level of trauma walked nearly 2 kilometers along through the bush. People call him a hero, but Tyler wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just a son who refused to let his father die. Sometimes courage isn't loud. It's a broken little boy walking out of the forest because love is stronger than fear. Now, from a child who walked through the impossible to save his father to a young woman whose final walk home ended in a nightmare. For 23-year-old nursing student Kata Scott, care wasn't just a job. It was who she was: long shifts, tired feet, but always a soft voice and a smile for her patience. On the night of October 12th, 2025, she finished another late shift at an assisted living facility in Philadelphia. Outside, the air was cool. Her car waited under a tired, flickering streetlight. It was a short walk, one she'd taken dozens of times before. Inside, her coworkers clocked out, grabbed bags, joked about heading home or grabbing food. Nothing about that night seemed different, but it was. Soon after she left the building, her phone went silent. No calls answered, no texts returned. People who knew Kata would later tell police she'd been scared. She felt watched, harassed, that someone wasn't just in her life, they were closing in. Investigators quickly focused on a man named Keon King. He had been in contact with her, and she had reportedly expressed fear about him. Eventually, King was arrested and charged with kidnapping, stalking, and related offenses in connection with Kata's disappearance. But by the time handcuffs closed around his wrist, she was already gone. Search teams spread out across the city. Flyers went up on utility poles and shopping windows. Her face appeared on TV, online, in the hands of volunteers, and people combed through wooded areas, vacant lots, and abandoned buildings. Anywhere someone could hide a secret. About 2 weeks later, an anonymous tip led police to a wooded area behind an abandoned school. They already had searched parts of the area once. This time, someone told them exactly where to look. In a shallow grave, they found human remains. Days later, DNA confirmed the truth. Her family had dreaded. It was her. Picture her final steps, leaving work, walking out into the chill of the Philadelphia night, maybe scrolling on her phone, maybe thinking about sleep or classes or her patients. She had no idea that this was the moment of her own life slipping away into the darkness. Did she see a car pull up? Did she recognize a face in the shadows? Did she feel that sick drop in her stomach when you realize something is terribly, terribly wrong? In the aftermath, her family refused to let her become just another headline. They honored her by speaking her name, remembering her kindness, and pushing for accountability. Talk began of foundations and efforts in her memory, ways to protect others, to make sure her story meant something more than just grief. But a question remains heavy and ugly. How many warnings do we ignore before tragedy strikes? How many times does someone say, I don't feel safe, and nothing changes until it's too late? Now, from a city grieving a young woman taken too soon to a plane drifting high above the earth where almost everyone on board is already gone. They thought it was just another short flight over the Mediterranean, a quick hop from Larnaca, Cyprus to Athens, Greece. But not long after takeoff, Helios Airways Flight 522 stopped being a flight and became a ghost ship in the sky. It was the morning of August 14th, 2005. Families, tourists, and workers boarded a Boeing 737-300. They stored carry-ons in overhaul bins, buckled seatbelts, fiddled with armrests. In the cockpit, the crew went through their checklist, but one setting, the pressurization system, was left in the wrong mode, still on manual from a previous test. As the plane climbed, the air outside thinned. Inside the cabin should have automatically adjusted, keeping oxygen levels safe. Instead, the pressure quietly dropped. At first, it felt like an ordinary fatigue, maybe a headache, a little confusion. You think you just didn't sleep well. Then the warning horn sounded. The horn that went off was the same sound used for a different type of emergency. One pilots were used to hearing on takeoff. If something was wrong with takeoff configuration, in the confusion, the crew apparently misinterpreted it. Meanwhile, the cabin continued to depressurize. Hypoxia, oxygen starvation settled over everyone. When your brain doesn't get enough oxygen, you don't just pass out immediately. First, you feel tired, disoriented, maybe euphoric. Judgment goes, reaction time slows. It becomes almost impossible to realize what's happening in time to stop it. Soon, passengers and crew began to lose consciousness. The mask never came down. The cockpit went quiet. On the ground, air traffic controllers tried to contact Flight 522. No response. The jet had reached cruising altitude but wasn't following instructions. It just kept flying. Greece scrambled. Fighter jets to intercept it. Pilots in a F 16 pulled up alongside the plane and looked inside. What they saw was chilling. Passengers slumped in their seats, unmoving, no visible motion in the cockpit, a large commercial jet just flying itself. Then one flicker of life. A person in a flight attendant's uniform appeared in the cockpit, believed to be a cabin crew member with some pilot training, desperately trying to regain control. But by then, too much time had passed. The fuel was running out, the engines were about to starve. At 12:04 p.m., after nearly 2 hours as a ghost flight, Helios Airways Flight 522 ran out of fuel. The engine sputtered and died. The plane descended in a slow, uncontrolled arc and crashed into the hills near Grand Monaco, Greece. All 121 people on board were killed. The investigation would reveal a chain of errors: a misset switch, a misunderstood alarm, a deadly lack of oxygen, a perfect storm of human mistake and mechanical indifferences. No bomb, no hijacker, no mid air explosion, just silence. Silence that slowly stole the breath from everyone on board. From a ghost ship above the cloud to a cabin in the woods where something unimaginable and violent took place behind a simple wooden door. Katy, California, April 11th, 1981. A small rural resort town tucked into the mountains. Cabin 28 set among the trees, one of the many modest units where families tried to start over or just get by. Inside that cabin, the Sharp family was settling in for the night. Glenna Sue Sharp, a single mother, had moved to Katy with her children for a fresh start. That evening, some of her kids were home. Her 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, was spending the night at a friend's nearby. Her son, John, 15, and his friend, Dana Wingate, 17, were out earlier and returned later. The night should have been like any other: TV, talking, maybe arguments over nothing important. The next morning, April 12th, Sheila came home. She opened the door to cabin 28 and stepped into a scene no one should ever see. Inside the living room, her mother, Sue, her brother, John, and Dana lay brutally murdered. They had been bound with tape and wire, beaten, and attacked with multiple weapons. The scene was chaotic, violent, and rage filled. Sue's younger boys and another child slept in a bedroom nearby, unharmed but within reach of whoever did this. Tina, Sue's 12-year-old daughter, was missing. The crime scene was a storm of violence, furniture displaced, blood evidence on the walls and surfaces. Some of the binding materials appeared to come from inside the house, others brought in. It looked personal, but also planned. There were suggestions that at least two people had been involved. Rumors swirled through Katy and beyond. Names were whispered: people who stayed at the resort, men with shady reputations, individuals Sue allegedly had conflicts with. Over the years, investigators focused on suspects, including a man named Martin Smart and his associate, but no one was ever convicted. 3 years later, in 1984, a portion of a human skull was found in the woods in a neighboring county. Later, the remains were identified as belonging to Tina Sharp, the missing child from cabin 28. Whatever happened to her after that night happened far from home. Now, the Katy murders remain unsolved, a family annihilated, a child abducted and killed. No trial, no confession, no single clear answer for why cabin 28 became a slaughterhouse. Sometimes the scariest part of a crime isn't what, it's everything we never learn. From a cabin filled with unanswered screams to a teenager whose final walk home was supposed to be the safest part of her day. Somerville, Massachusetts, March 1995. The streets are familiar: triple-decker houses, narrow sidewalks, streetlights casting long yellow pools onto the pavement. 17-year-old Deanna Crimin knows this route by heart. It's the walk home she's done countless times. Deanna was a high school student, a hard worker who volunteered with kids and held a job at a local supermarket. On the night of March 29th, she left her boyfriend's house around midnight to walk the short distance home. The distance between their place and hers, just a few blocks. She never made it. The next morning, a group of kids taking the shortcut behind a senior housing complex found her body. Deanna had been strangled. The location was painfully close to her home, almost within sight of where her family lived. The investigation moved quickly at first. Police identified several persons of interest: her boyfriend, a local man with a criminal record, and a Somerville firefighter. Each had some connection. Each raised questions, but questions are not proof. Years after years, the case remained open. No arrest, no trial, no justice. The community held vigils. Murals were painted in Deanna's memory. Her family kept pushing, refusing to let her name fade from public consciousness. A reward eventually reaching tens of thousands of dollars were offered for information leading to an arrest. Picture her final minutes: the quiet of the late night Somerville, the sound of her footsteps on the pavement, the glow of the streetlight behind her, maybe the faint hum of a TV from an apartment window. Did she notice someone fall and step behind her? Did she recognize the person who took her life? Decades have passed, evidence re examined, technology has improved, but as of today, Deanna's killer has never been brought to justice. Her story is a cold case that still burns in the hearts of those who love her. From a life stolen in a quiet neighborhood to a crime so monstrous, it pushed an entire city and nation to ask how such evil could go unnoticed for so long. To hear the rest of this story, please be sure to stay tuned for part 2 coming your way. And thanks again for watching, and have a good night.